I released the Romagnetics MIDI last year, and while I was working on version 2.0, which would add new features, there was a surge of interest towards the first pedal that I developed, which was the Romagnetics FS-404. And so this user called me and asked me if I could add all these new functionalities. He wanted to add a way to circle through several pads and banks. And so I started to develop the version 2.0 of the pedal, which is what we're about to see in this video. What I needed to add was as follow. Add a way to toggle through pads, add a kill switch to the pedal, and try not to get crazy trying to figure out how Roland managed such an abominable MIDI implementation. It's really something that I had forgotten since I last worked on the code, because I basically thought that it would be super easy to just add an increment button to whatever note was being played, and I assumed that all the notes would be mapped. Like, for example, if pad 1 is C, then D sharp is going to be pad 2, and pad 3 is going to be D, etc. That's what you would assume, right? I'm just going to have you take a look at how it actually looks. So it's snippets of 4 that don't even follow each other in a very weird pattern. And so that was the first job that I had to do. Before, I already had all that mapped on the software, but I didn't have it in the machine. So you would say play pad B14 in the software, and then the software would translate it to whatever MIDI note that was. But now I needed to have that implementation in the hardware itself, which made the pedal a little bit more complicated. But since Arduino is really nice, I managed to make that without issues. Then the second step was upgrading the software, so I just added the functions that were needed. Another change that I made, and I think a lot of people will be happy about that, is that I noticed that a lot of people were using Macs. This is the music industry after all, so it's only normal, and so it was a good excuse for me to buy a Mac for the development of this software. So if there are any Mac specific bugs, you can send them to me and I will be able to reproduce them on actual hardware. And so the next function that I added, and it brings us back to how Roland is incredible with MIDI, it was a kill switch. So I implemented the kill switch and it didn't work, and so it took me a long time to realize that actually a kill switch doesn't work with the SP-404 MK2, meaning that when you started a pad, if you want to stop all pads, there's absolutely no way to do it. Not replaying the pad, not restopping the pads, you're just out. So I still implemented the kill switch. It's there and you can use it for your other gear. It's really useful. I know, for example, I have sometimes sequencers or other gear that goes crazy, and having a kill switch is always useful, but unfortunately it will do nothing to the Roland SP-404 MK2 just because it hasn't been implemented yet. And if you want to have that in the future, I will be very, very glad to add it. But first, Roland has to give me a way to program it in the first place. If you look at the software itself, you can see that I added a bass note. So the bass note is essentially, if you want to use command 1, 2, and 3 to mean, for example, next, previous, and reset, you can set up your bass note as whatever you want. And so that practically gives you a fourth note that you can use. So once again, the commands you can use for a MIDI pad, SP commands for MIDI note, CC, and now you have toggle, which is the new mode, and you have previous, next, repeat, reset, and the kill switch, which you can either have as a 2-second press in any mode or as a separate command. And then of course you can select the MIDI mode. So for any toggle mode, next, previous, repeat, reset, you can have in mode A or mode B, and then you can loop the bank or not. So you can have a next and repeat the whole. If you have an album, for example, on one bank, you can circle through it. That would work absolutely fine. If you're interested in buying the FS-404 for a limited time, you can have the box for free. If you already own Romagnetics FS-404, I made a short video on how to update both the pedal and the companion software. Now, for the pedal itself, there's a couple of things I changed, and the biggest change was to add this plastic part, because before what I needed to do is file the enclosure to fit perfectly with the USB-C, and it was a really hard thing to do, and I'm not ashamed to say I threw out a couple of boxes just before they weren't up to my standards. And since I think this update does quite a lot of things, I'm thinking I might do a lot of pedals in the future, and so I decided to invest in a 3D printer. As you can see, I invested in a Mac, I invest in a 3D printer. Those are mostly excuses. I'm happy to buy them, but Romagnetics is a great way for me to realize my ideal workshop, and I hope you guys are enjoying the ride. We already had the laser engraver last year for the MIDI, and then we have the 3D printer, and the parts for the USB-C were quite easy to make. I just had to adjust the size a little bit, and after 2 or 3 tries I had functional parts. But I thought it was a little bit sad to buy a very capable 3D printer just to do those little tiny prints. So I have plans this year to do a new project in which I would have a plastic enclosure, and there's also other projects linked to the MIDI, which I will disclose next year. But in any case, I wanted some cases. So this is not a 3D printer channel, but I wanted to guide you through kind of the process on doing them. So I designed the enclosure first, and it took me a couple of tries to get right. So the right clearance for the pedal. All pedals are not exactly the same size. They can vary by 0.5 millimeter also, so I had to account for that. And so after a couple of tries I had good pedals, but the reason I bought that specific 3D printer is because it can print ASA and ABS, which are plastics that take a little bit more heat but can resist our more heat, and there's a property of them which I like a lot, and that property is that they can be vapor smoothed by using acetone. And so what I thought would be a very straightforward project actually took me a lot of trial and error to get right. So at the beginning I used a container that was way too big, and trying to use ventilation and heating to make up for the size of the container, but it turned out you don't need ventilation and you don't need heating that much. When the volume is really small, it helps a lot, but then my next mistake was to leave it for too long, and so the print came out absolutely wonderful, and after a couple of days it was just a mess. The walls were completely wobbly, and there was no way for me to use it as a commercial product. I went back to the drawing board and used thicker walls, and also minimized the amount of time that acetone smoothing needed to take place by changing a lot of settings. So as you can see, it took me a lot of time, but there's 2 great things that came out of it. First of all, I think the boxes, they look pretty good. They can be used on Gridfinity, which is something that I want to keep for my upcoming projects, because I think a lot of people are starting using them, and I personally use them, and I like Gridfinity a lot, and the open source aspect of it. The second thing is I will be able to use the knowledge that I gained regarding plastics and 3D printing in general for an upcoming project that I have this year. So if you're interested, especially if you're using a digital piano, this is going to be something of interest, I believe. So please subscribe and do all the things that help us keep in touch. Lastly, to finish the video, I want to say thank you to everybody watching and having interest in my pedals. As I said at the beginning of the video, I was working on the MIDI version 2 when I received the inquiry, and for me the FS-404 wasn't that huge of a project, but to see that people like it and ask me to make it better, and so I can come back to it, change the way I make them slightly, that's something that I personally enjoy a lot. So I really want to say thank you to, if you're just watching on the channel, if you're using any of the pedals, or if you plan to buy them in the future. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to talk with everybody, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.